that, and if it's during the time, you have absolute immunity.
Well, he feels pretty strongly about it. So does his attorney, Alina Habba.
First of all, at no time was...
Well, I'm sorry. That apparently have a problem with that particular cut. All right. Let's hear a little bit of the argument. At one point, the judge tried to bring John D. Sauer, who was a representative for Trump in the courtroom, into a hypothetical discussion, and it was very antagonistic, I thought.
Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes. There's a political process that would have to occur under the structure of our Constitution, which would require impeachment and conviction by the Senate. In these exceptional cases, as the OLC...
By a president and could be considered official acts, and I've asked you, would such a president be subject to criminal prosecution if he's not impeached or convicted?
Requirement.
And your answer, your yes or no answer is no.
I believe I said qualified yes if he's impeached and convicted first.
In other words, what he's saying is, if he does something that's outrageous, then it would be incumbent upon the Congress to impeach him and convict him, and then he would not have immunity. But otherwise, he has immunity. That's sort of the argument there. Here is noted legal analyst Jonathan Turley, who doesn't think much of the president's argument.
I think the odds are heavily against former President Trump in prevailing on these claims. He's making a sweeping argument of immunity that may run into trouble even on the U.S. Supreme Court. At issue is really what in Nixon versus Fitzgerald, the court called the outer perimeter of presidential authority. It is, how do we define what Trump was doing on January 6th and afterwards? He was certainly president. But I think there's a sticker shock element here for the Trump arguments that they would go too far in allowing a president to commit criminal acts. Keep in mind, this is not finding that he committed criminal acts. The question is, if he did commit criminal acts, would those still be covered under this immunity? And so I think that's the tough question facing him. But there's a number of torpedoes in the water here. One is time, which you mentioned. Most of us expressed skepticism about the March 4th date. It seems even less likely now. If that date's missed, can they get a trial in before the election? Keep in mind, this is a motivated panel that's likely to issue an opinion quickly. But the Trump campaign can ask for review in bank for the full court, and then they can go to the Supreme Court, and that will eat up the clock. There's also another marginal issue here. A respected law professor at Northwestern named Stephen Calabrese has filed briefs that he thinks there's a problem with Smith himself, that he and others believe that Smith's appointment is unconstitutional. Now, that's the ultimate Hail Mary play, but the panel seems to be giving it serious consideration. It doesn't mean that they're buying that argument.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That's something to keep an eye on. But what I'm coming away with from all of this is the three-judge panel didn't particularly seem too enthusiastic and seemed very skeptical of the president's argument of absolute immunity when you're president of the United States. But that being said, I mean, there are situations where you carry out actions on behalf of the nation that sometimes may bring you into legal scrutiny later. And should you not be protected from some of that? So it's a very interesting debate that's going to be happening behind closed doors. But the other thing about this is, Jack Smith wants to get this thing going. He wants to try to, get this trial going before the elections. He has political motivations. There's little doubt about that. And so he would like to have Trump going through this trial during the campaign. But because he took this matter to an appeals court, now the way it works is the appeals courts, the three-judge panel will come up with a ruling. If Trump doesn't like the outcome of that ruling, he can appeal and have it heard by the entire appeals court en banc, which means all of the judges would then sit in and rehear the same arguments. and then it would take some time for them to come up with their decision. And then if Trump did not like that decision, he could still take it to the high court, which means that this is, as long as this issue is outstanding, Jack Smith can't begin the trial. And this thing could go on and drag out all the way through the election season, past the conventions, etc., and may never be decided, and may never go to court, and may never go to trial, all the way up to the time that the elections are held. So by just doing what lawyers do, which is at times drag their feet. Oh Lord, do I know about that? Just drag your feet and drag their feet and drag their feet for time. Trump could very well become the next president of the United States before this trial would ever come to fruition. So, it's entirely possible. It's a fascinating case, but I got to tell you, at the end of the day, I think there needs to be some immunity granted to presidents so that they are protected from lawsuits if they are taking act. Let's say they order a missile strike and a bunch of civilians are collateral damage and killed, but he felt that there was a national security reason to carry out the strike, and that it served the best interest of the nation to carry out that strike from a national security standpoint. But sadly, a lot of civilians were killed. I mean, could then the president, once he becomes a civilian again, be tried, and could those families that who had people who lost their lives come after the president after he's left office? Well, no. You would say, well, he needs to have some immunity. Well, where does that line end? At what level does a president have immunity, and which level does he not have immunity? And could a president, on the way out the door, grant himself a pardon? Or if you go into office, could the first thing you do is grant yourself a pardon on that particular matter? I mean, I'm telling you, there are so many unanswered questions. And the reason is that none of this stuff has ever really been tested before. We're in a gray area from the standpoint of the law. But this hearing, I would say, probably did not go too well for the former president. But that's okay, because he doesn't need a win here. What he needs is just to drag it out for a while. And it seems that maybe the American people will still be given the opportunity to make a decision about what they think with regard to this president and whether or not he should be reelected. So much going on today. I mean, we've got this, we've got other things happening in the 2024 race. We'll get into all of that coming up in the next hour. Right now, it is 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let's talk about gold, which has been used forever as money. It's a tried and true store of value consistent across generations. Some have observed that generational wealth can have three components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, land, who can afford land with interest rates where they are? Art, do you know anything about art? I don't, but I can understand something I can hold in my hand. I can understand gold, silver, platinum. I can feel it. I can touch it. It has value. So what do you want to do here? Do you know that inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money? Gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. And you can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Maybe you have gold that you inherited or someone gave to you. You're not sure what it's worth, or you're curious about precious metals and want to learn more. Well, this is the place you go, Nashville Gold and Coin, always available to discuss your options and educate you on the precious metals market. So do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin. Learn more at NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Some news concerning former President Trump as he was at a hearing today in Washington, an active investigation at a daycare right here in Tennessee, and some General Assembly news as the special session as the session has begun. We'll let you know all about that. 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, we got it all covered here on the drive, all those things. And, of course, we'll revisit the decision by the Titans today to oust Vrabel as the head coach, if you haven't heard. That happened earlier today, and Mac Morey will guide us through all of that in the 5 o'clock hour. So be sure and stay tuned for that. Looking at the markets, Dow Jones Industrials down 157 points. The S&P was down 7. The NASDAQ was up about 13.94 points. So there you have mixed boards today. What's driving all this? John Maxon is standing by with more on that. Hello, John.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, kind of a flat day on the market after we had the big tech rally that was yesterday and the slow start to the year last week. But really, what the market's really continuing to look at is inflation. That's something that, it seems to be just stuck with us. But we've got the consumer price index that's coming out for December on Thursday. And it's kind of like this battle, people believing that the Fed is going to cut interest rates sooner than later. And a lot of that, whether the market continues to go higher or maybe we get a little bit of a correction, is probably going to be determined on what these two inflation reports, with the first one being on Thursday, the consumer price index. So it's going to be a key. The Fed's tried to sort of dampen those hopes a little bit, but the market's going to be watching that really closely. So until that, the market's been pretty flat.
All right. Thank you, John. And, of course, you can learn about all the things they do over at Beacon Capital Management and what John can help you with by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. I got one other story I want to share with you guys before we get to the top of the hour. We had this story the other day where a 737 MAX 9, the door blew out, right? And this was an Alaska Airlines flight. Did you know that apparently, nobody was hurt, but apparently in the gusts of wind, and when you decompress an aircraft at 16,000 feet, things get sucked out through the hole, right? One of them was an iPhone.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
It fell to the ground from 16,000 feet. Somebody found it. Found an iPhone on the side of the road, still in airplane mode with half a battery and open to a baggage claim for Alaska Airlines. So it came out of that plane. It fell 16,000 feet, landed. Some guy found it on the side of the road, and it was still functioning.
Yeah, just like someone just fell out of their pocket.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was walking out before posting it on social media. It also showed that it appeared to be Alaska Airlines baggage flight receipt. The image showed the baggage receipt for the traveler and a piece of charger still stuck in the phone's charging port.
Oh, wow.
He said it was perfectly intact. There were no scratches on it. And he said the door for the plane was also recovered by another Portland resident. And somebody else found, some of the other things that were recovered. Apparently 2 cell phones were recovered. Yeah. And somebody apparently found the other one. But I think it's amazing that you can have something fall at terminal velocity out of a plane, plummet 16,000 feet, land on in a side of the road in a bar ditch, and the thing's still functioning.
Yeah.
I remember those old Timex commercials when I was a kid. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking, John Cameron Swayze did those, and it just seems like to me that's a pretty interesting. If I were Apple, that'd be a commercial.
Yeah, that's true. But if it would have fallen, a couple of feet one direction or the other and hit the
pavement,
road,
yeah,
it'd have been disintegrated.
It would have been a little different, I'm sure. All right. It is now 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 41 degrees in Nashville. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tomorrow. Traffic, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Today, former President Trump was at a hearing in Washington pertaining to the federal January 6th election interference case and whether he would be immune from facing any prosecution. A 3-judge panel with the D.C. Circuit Court heard arguments from both sides. Kim Willey says that Trump's attorneys are arguing that presidents are totally immune, but that's not outlined in the Constitution.
There is no immunity in the United States Constitution for presidents, period. There is a clause relating to congressional immunity. If members of Congress do things that are legislative, they get immunity. You can't sue them. So the whole idea of immunity is implied. It's not expressed. And the idea the Supreme Court has said is, listen, you have to have presidents have some flexibility. But the notion that there's no red lines that presidents can cross, that they are elected to serve the people, they take an oath to defend the Constitution. It is not a monarchy.
To test the argument, one of the judges asked the Trump lawyer if a president could order the assassination of his political opponent and still evade prosecution. The attorney insisted that president would have to be convicted by the Senate to face justice. An active investigation in Tennessee. The Tennessee Department of Human Services is now investigating a carbon monoxide leak in the Elm Hill Academy daycare. One mother had to take her 8-month-old to the emergency room after noticing the odor and testing it out with a CO2 monitor. Even though Montgomery said her daughter didn't enter the school building Friday, she reportedly tested for more than double what an adult should have in their system for carbon monoxide and was given oxygen for 6 hours as a result. Elm Hill Academy has said they are unable to comment as it is an active investigation. And right now in Tennessee, gun reform advocates hope to persuade the General Assembly to enact new gun safety laws during this year's session. They rallied using a group of 5 to 10-year-olds. This is 10-year-old Ivy Ogle, who spoke of the Covenant school shooting.
My friend was there at Covenant that day and saw some horrible stuff. Now she's scared of things I've never thought to be scared of, like sitting in a dark movie theater and loud banging noises. And she even wants to put bulletproof glass in her house.
And meanwhile, there is a new bill to release all records on the Covenant school shooter to the public. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air on this very breezy Tuesday. I mean, we had major issues with the wind last night here in bucolic Watertown.
Yeah, I could hear it outside my windows for sure.
I know. And so the first thing that happened was I have inflatable flamingos that float on top of the pool, and I don't know where they are. I'm quite frankly, They have seemed to have blown into the next county.
When you bought them, you didn't know they flew, just floated.
I thought they'd just float, and so they I don't know. I've got to track them down. Anybody in bucolic Watertown find some inflatable pink flamingos? They're mine.
You may want to check Cookville.
Yeah, it could be.
That area.
And then the other thing is, I got this bird camera for Christmas, and I've been waiting for a bird to perch on the bird camera and eat some seeds so I could take a picture of it. And, well, it blew over last night, landed on the deck, on the patio, and outside the pool, and seed went everywhere.
Oh.
So I go over to sort of pick it up and clean it up, and and all of a sudden I noticed, well, there are birds. For the very first time, birds have found the seed that spilled on the. Then there's like a cardinal and some other birds, but I have yet to get a picture on the bird camera.
Well, so maybe now that they know that it's there.
Well, now
they
know there's
involved.
food there. That's right. So maybe they'll show up. I don't know. I guess we ought to go ahead and do this as a 2024 update, because a lot of stuff going on, and I've got a story here that I have not seen anywhere else that just makes my reporter spidey senses tingle, and it makes me say, I wonder what this is all about. Do you remember back when, the FBI was investigating Hillary, and there was a question about whether she had done anything wrong? And then there was this mysterious meeting of Bill Clinton on the tarmac in Phoenix with the Attorney General, just happened to be at the same airport at the same time, and that Clinton goes onto her plane, and they have some kind of conversation. Everybody thought, well, this was the Attorney General letting Bill know that Hillary was not going to be prosecuted, and that they were not going forward with anything as a result of that. But I mean, that mysterious meeting on the tarmac has always been suspect, right? And what I know is, in the business world, we're talking about big business, big corporations. So, when you're thinking, well, I'd like to merge with that corporation, but you don't want any of the talk to get around, right? You know what they do? They fly to a neutral location in their jets, and then they hold a meeting at the airport or a nearby hotel. Nobody's around. Nobody knows they're meeting. It's the way that they keep these things secret, right? It's done all the time in the business world. If you want to have a conversation you don't want your competitors to know about, or you don't want the world to find out about, you go to some kind of, remote airport somewhere, land there with your jets, have the meeting, and then leave, and nobody knows you've even met, because there's nobody around to watch, no prying eyes. Well, in Phoenix, it turned out that there were some prying eyes. They didn't expect them to be there. I mean, Bill Clinton ostensibly was there to play golf. The temperature that day was 106 in Phoenix. He wasn't playing golf. He went to Phoenix to have a meeting with the Attorney General. And the Attorney General was there to give a speech and was getting ready to leave. And, hey, the former president's plane's right over here. Why don't we go over and say hello? Now, that's not what it seems so innocent, but it was really not. Well, now comes another story sort of like that. Reminds me of that. Pictures have been shown on the internet of Bill Clinton and Gavin Newsom palling around in a luxury Mexican resort playing golf. What were they doing there? What does it mean for the 2024 presidential race? And is this evidence that something is going on behind the scenes to have a big convention switcheroo so that Biden steps down and Gavin Newsom becomes the nominee? I mean, this you got to wonder about this. The power brokers, we know, what do we know? We know, well, that the other day, yesterday, we learned about a meeting that happened between former President Obama and Joe Biden at the White House in December. And apparently, at the time, Obama expressed some real concerns to Joe Biden about the nature of his campaign and some of the problems that they seem to be facing and their concerns. Now we also, by the way, heard today, and I'll get into it in a minute, that Michelle Obama is giving interviews where she's talking about how concerned she is. So, turning up the pressure there. And then we find out that Bill Clinton, one of the other elder statesmen of the Democrat Party, is palling around with Gavin Newsom, the person that most people think would be the person they would turn to if indeed Joe Biden decides not to go forward. They're palling around in Mexico having conversations on the golf course. Does that not make you wonder what's going on behind the scenes? It really does. And again, I have not seen this reported anywhere, but it's certainly, given the knowledge I have of Bill Clinton and the way he likes to operate, makes me wonder what they were up to down Mexico way. Interesting. All right, let's see what else we have here in the world of 2024 politics. Nikki Haley is surging a bit in the numbers. She is now, according to the Fox Power ranking, in second place, supplanting Ron DeSantis. And listen to this. She's making some moves in Iowa, but Iowa, I don't know. Trump still has a big lead there. We'll get into that in a moment. But in New Hampshire, CNN has a new poll out that says Trump 39, Haley 32. Trump leads by 7. Imagine a scenario where you have somebody after the Iowa caucuses. Maybe it's Ramaswamy. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's Ron DeSantis, because there's some rumors floating around that Ron DeSantis will get out after Iowa, though he has denied those rumors. There will be a block of voters that were committed to them that would then be free, right? You wouldn't vote for Ron DeSantis if he had pulled out of the race, right? If Nikki Haley were to pick up a significant number of those voters, then she might ostensibly win New Hampshire, or at least tie, or at least come in real close. Now, that may be something, to watch in the days ahead. What happens in Iowa 1 week from today is very important to watch. But what's really important is what happens immediately after Iowa, because if you haven't gotten anything going by the time the Iowa caucuses take place and you're still way down the pack, like a Chris Christie or a Ramaswamy or somebody else, you might just decide, okay, well, I gave it a good shot and I've made my point. Now I'm gonna bow out of this thing gracefully before I get more deeply embarrassed. And so would those votes then fall Nikki Haley's way? If they could, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. It's why this whole Iowa thing is so interesting. By the way, Chris, I just looked at the forecast for Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh no.
On caucus day. I'm going to be there. We're going to take the show there on Monday the 15th. The high forecast in Des Moines, Iowa on Monday the 15th of January is -3. and the overnight low Sunday night into Monday night is -12. So those Iowans those Hawkeyes, they're a hardy bunch. They'll still show up. They show up for the caucuses. They take that whole thing pretty seriously, and we'll be bringing you all the information from Iowa 1 week from a week from yesterday. On the 15th, we'll be there. This show will be there, and we'll bring you complete coverage from Iowa. All right. But Nikki Haley, she was on a town hall last night, and she's Fox is doing an interesting thing. They're doing a town hall with Haley last night, DeSantis tonight, Trump on the next night, and I think that's up against a CNN debate involving Haley and DeSantis. They're the only two going to be on the stage. So Trump's going to, take all of the viewers. But it's been interesting what Fox has been doing with regard to that, sort of scooping CNN at their own game. Here is Haley on that town hall last night.
No, he shouldn't be taken off the ballot, and the Supreme Court needs to rule quickly before other states start to do this. This is one of those don't open a door if you don't want to see what happens. This is a door we don't need to open. I will defeat President Trump fair and square. I don't need anybody throwing him off the ballot to do it.
So she says, no, they should not take him off the ballot like some in the state of Colorado and Maine and other states want to do. But she says, I can beat him without anybody's help. Okay, now that's when Trump is like 50 points ahead. That's a big claim. But she says, she wants to engage with Trump, and Trump doesn't want to be in any of the debates, and she wants him there.
Bring it. Bring it. I want him on a debate stage. I've said that over and over again. If he wants to put me in a barrel, then put me in a barrel on a debate stage, because that's where we want to see him. I mean, they're being so sweet. They're giving me so much attention. I appreciate that, but it's because they see what we're seeing. The momentum is good, and they can continue to attack all they want.
Well, it's clear that Nikki Haley is getting some mo. She's getting some momentum, the big mo. But, is it going to be enough when you have, a former president who's gaining, got like 50, 60% of the vote wrapped up? I don't know. It's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift. One of the things about Iowa that all the years that I've covered it is I've always been impressed with the power of evangelical preachers to help guide, what happens on caucus day. In other words, evangelicals go to church on Sunday. There's a lot of conversation. If it doesn't happen from the pulpit, it happens, around the coffee pot, or in Sunday school while they're waiting for Sunday school, or on the parking lot on the way to the car. These conversations are had, and I've been there. In fact, I have a relative who is a evangelical minister in Iowa, and I'm going to be checking in with them on Sunday to see what people are saying, talking to some of the people they're going to church about what they're. And what's interesting is that Trump did not win the evangelical vote. When he first went to Iowa, Ted Cruz won the evangelical vote and won, by the way, the caucus that year. Trump came in second and all that. But one of the things that's interesting is that over the years, evangelicals have moved towards supporting Trump, which is interesting. Steve Kornacki over at MSNBC did a fascinating assessment of all of that. And it's something to watch, because where the evangelical vote goes in Iowa, that is often the person who has the greatest support and wins the caucus.
Just in terms of the numbers on this, I'll show you here in a second. It is a dramatic, pick your adjective, dramatic turnaround, I'll say, since 2016 in terms of where Trump stands with the evangelicals. We've seen this nationally, and I think it's the biggest story in Iowa. Just as a refresher, 8 years ago, Iowa caucuses, first time in the 2016, first contest of the 2016 process. Remember, Trump lost Iowa. He came in second to Ted Cruz. He barely held off Marco Rubio for third place. Remember, there were a couple days there after Iowa in 2016. People were saying, hey, maybe this Trump thing will all fall apart. He ended up winning New Hampshire, turning it around. But the overriding reason that Donald Trump lost Iowa in 2016 is right here. This is the exit poll from the caucuses. This is the evangelical vote. About 64% of the Iowa Republican electorate in 2016 was evangelical. And look, Ted Cruz won it. He won it by double digits, 34-22 over Donald Trump. So Cruz with a double-digit win among evangelicals. There was a lot of resistance, a lot of skepticism. Trump had some support with evangelicals, but Cruz was the candidate of the evangelicals in Iowa in 2016, and he won the state. So that was 2016. Our most recent NBC News Des Moines Register poll out of Iowa. This is about a month old, but this is what we've been seeing all year. Among evangelicals, look at the turnaround. Trump, who was losing by 12 to Ted Cruz, now with an outright majority, 51% of the evangelical vote, basically 2-1 over his nearest foe, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, barely in double digits, 51%. That tracks, by the way, with Trump in that poll. His overall support in Iowa, we also had at 51%.
So it's really interesting to see that the evangelicals have now supported Trump in a bigger way. And as the evangelical vote goes in Iowa, often that's the way the caucus goes. We'll be looking to see if that holds true when we get there on the 14th and into the 15th, when we provide live coverage from Iowa right here on The Drive. 21 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. You know, with the cold weather that's coming next week here to Middle Tennessee, you want to make sure that your heater is working at peak efficiency. If it's been on the blink or not acting reliably, why don't you call the number I would call, 615-775-7833, and have the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing come over and get it back in order. You know, the way you avoid having these things break down is to do preventative maintenance. And that's what being a member of the Beehive Club is all about. It starts with $99 down, and what you get for that is 3 thorough maintenance services on all your systems. One aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833, or online at busybeehvac.com.
An update on Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's undisclosed hospitalization and today's money news 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
25 minutes now past the hour. One of the big stories of the day here locally is that Vrabel is out as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. If you're just getting in your car, you may not know that, but don't worry, because at the top of the 5 o'clock hour, we've got Mac Morey. We're moving him up. He's moving up to the A slot. You know, normally he's there in the B slot, but now we're moving him up to the A slot, and he's going to bring us all of the information about that, which was, I don't think it was a complete shock to a lot of people, but it is interesting, and you know, people care so much about the Titans and about wanting them to do well, and we invest in our local team. And so Mac will sort of explain exactly what happened.
And we'll hear from Titans general manager who just spoke to the media for the first time since the offseason. We'll hear from the Tennessee Titans owner, Amy Adams, on what she had to say of this decision. We'll get into it all, Brian.
All right. So, that's coming up at 5:05 in case you want to hear the top story of the day. We were talking politics a moment ago. There's some other stuff I want to get into the mix with regard to the 2024 race. There is a top strategist at J.P. Morgan. Now, these financial strategists at these big banks, it's their job to sort of sit back sometimes and look at things and try to predict what's going to happen. And then, that's so that, businesses can have sort of a leg up as to how they need to adjust to things that happen in the news, right? So they're always watching the news, and they care deeply about politics because who's president can mean a big difference to businesses and the way they operate. And so this guy's name is, I've got it right here, but it's Cymbalus. Michael Cymbalus, the chairman of market and investment strategy for J.P. Morgan Asset and Wealth Management. And he came up with 10 predicted surprises. And one of them is that Joe Biden will not be the nominee of the Democrat Party. He wrote that Biden could withdraw from the race sometime between Super Tuesday on March 5th and the November election, and that the president would cite his health as the reason behind the move. Then the Democrat National Committee would tap a nominee as Biden's replacement. See, that's what Bill Clinton and Gavin Newsom were talking about down in Mexico. I'm pretty sure. Oh, well, to be a little bug on the golf cart. Just to be a fly on the wall. So he thinks that Biden will not be the nominee. And I've been saying that for some time now. I just can't imagine a scenario where they let him do that, but we'll see what's going on. Democrats have dropped $35 million to focus on reaching Black, Latino, and Asian American voters because Latino and Black voters especially are fleeing the Democrat Party, not happy with Joe Biden. He's losing Black support precipitously, losing a lot of Black support. It's not that they're going over to Trump. It's just that they're not pleased with Biden. They're not going to vote for him. He may lose a lot of votes in the Hispanic community and the Black community, and they're trying to figure out, well, what's going on. Yesterday, I thought it was just rich that we had, Democrats who are going out there and say, well, it's they're being blocked by the MAGA wall. The MAGA wall is keeping Black voters from getting the real truth about what Biden is doing. The MAGA wall. What is the MAGA wall? How is it that the people who support Donald Trump, how are they physically stopping the Black community from getting information? I just don't understand it. But one of the way they're panicked. And so they are spending $35 million to try to bring them back. And saying, good luck with that. And here's a sort of a companion story to that from Breitbart.com. The Biden campaign is failing to recruit enough Black surrogates. See, what you do when you have a campaign is you can't have the president everywhere, and you want to have, find people who can go out there and speak on your behalf, the so-called surrogates. And they're looking for people to do that in the Black community, and apparently they're having real tough with that. From Breitbart, the Biden campaign reportedly not reaching its Black surrogate recruitment numbers, highlighting President Joe Biden's sinking popularity among the historically important demographic for Democrats. His previous statements and policies offended many Black voters. He said several things that have sort of not set well with them. Biden's complicated history with Black voters might not help his surrogate recruitment. According to Semaphor's Katia Globa, Biden's support among Black voters is worrisome. Amid concern that Biden's message isn't breaking through with the party's bedrock base of Black voters, Democrats told Semaphore that they were still too few effective messengers working to sell his record to skeptical voters. And Jim Clyburn said he's not worried, but he's concerned. He's not worried, but he's concerned. I don't know what's the difference. And then, very quickly, Michelle Obama terrified by what the 2024 election may bring. She's been doing podcasts and making some appearances. A lot of people think Michelle is where they will turn. I still don't think so. 31 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 41 degrees in Nashville. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tomorrow. Chance for showers, even a slight chance for snow tonight. We'll tell you all about it. Forecast traffic report just ahead. The White House confirming today that it is ordering a review of cabinet protocols for delegating authority after the fallout from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's undisclosed hospitalization. Karen Travers has the latest on when the president was informed of Austin's cancer diagnosis.
For 5 days, President Biden was unaware of the specific reason why Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was in the hospital, and he didn't know the Pentagon chief had received a cancer diagnosis in early December. The White House acknowledged Tuesday that was not optimal. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
That's not the way this is supposed to happen. The president understands that.
And now over to the Money News, Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks tumbled, giving back some of the last few days' gains. The Dow fell 158 points. The S&P closed down 7, while the Nasdaq rose 14. About 3 out of 4 stocks in the S&P, the broadest of the indices, closed lower. The Biden administration is enacting a new rule with the goal of preventing the misclassification of workers as independent contractors, a step which could affect millions in the U.S. workforce. The rule replaces Trump-era standards that narrowed the criteria for classifying employees as contractors. Such workers aren't guaranteed minimum wages or benefits. For now, at least, the change will not apply to workers for major app-based platforms like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash. The World Bank says high interest rates, persistent inflation, slowing trade, and a diminished China could put the brakes on the global economy for the 3rd year in a row, expanding at just 2.4%.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
So how are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management say, well, we know it can be scary. It's up, it's down. But here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are today and then help you make any mid-course corrections that may be needed to put you where you want to be in the future. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Well, Beacon can provide you that reassurance, and it starts with something very simple, a phone call to this number, 615-488-9303. I'll give you the number again, so if you want to get a pencil, you might want to write it down. The experts at Beacon will ask you some questions, and then they'll take it from there. You have nothing to lose in this process except potentially all of the worry that you have. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. And at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing that you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you are now on the right path. Again, the number, last time, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air on this breezy Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. Reminder that we will take the show on the road. We'll be in Iowa on Monday of next week for the Iowa caucuses. And our thanks to the folks at Busy Bee and the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project for supporting our trip and being our sponsors on that. We'll bring you all that stuff. We'll be checking in throughout the day to bring you the very latest information. And I'll be shivering because it's going to be -3 in Des Moines.
So lucky.
Remind me again why I decided to do this. I love it. This is my 10th political campaign season. I've covered politics on a national level for 10 years, 10 different campaigns, 40 years. This will be the 10th one. So I want a nice round number. That's what I want. We got a lot of news from the swamp, and today we learned a little bit more about what was going on with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin when he was in the hospital, and nobody seemed to know it. Now, first of all, the Pentagon wants you to know they're very sorry that they did not handle this well, and that there's a complete review going on, and that we're going to get the answers, and we're going to have a policy going forward. But apparently what we now know is that apparently it had to do with what they called elective surgery. I don't call it elective surgery. Turns out that Lloyd Austin went to the hospital on December 22nd for treatment for prostate cancer. And that's a very personal thing. And apparently he didn't want everybody in the world to know that he's having, this done. I can't imagine why you would need to keep it a secret, but you don't need to keep it a secret from the President of the United States. And you don't need to keep it a secret from your deputy Secretary of Defense. And you don't need to keep it a secret from others at the Pentagon. And apparently it was. So he goes, has the treatment, and everything, went okay. Then he had to come back to the hospital because he was having an immense amount of pain. And one can understand that if you have pain in that particular area, it could be an immense amount of pain. So he comes back, and he was in the ICU. I mean, that's how serious it was. He was in the intensive care unit. We don't know much about it. We don't know how much of that time he was not coherent. Was he under anesthesia? We don't know. But he didn't share that information with anybody until several days, and he's almost out of the ICU. Here's Major Pat Ryder, Pentagon spokesman, talking about this today from the Pentagon.
We'll keep you updated regarding the results of the review and any additional significant changes to process and procedures as appropriate. And as I highlighted to many of you yesterday, nothing is more important to the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense than the trust and confidence of the American people and the public we serve, and will continue to work hard every day to earn and deserve that trust.
Have you or the staff had a chance to speak to the Secretary, and has he shared at all why he was reluctant to make his condition public until now?
The staff has been in contact with the Secretary. I have not personally spoken to the Secretary, but I do know, for example, that he's in regular communication with his Chief of Staff. As for his travel schedule, of course, I don't have anything to announce. I can tell you that he is actively engaged in his duties, as I highlighted, and fully engaged. And so, completely confident in that, and we'll obviously keep you updated in terms of his status in the hospital.
Has he expressed at all why he was reluctant to share what he was going through until now?
I don't have that specifically from the Secretary, Tara, but obviously, as I highlighted, it's prostate cancer and the associated procedures are obviously deeply personal. And so, again, we'll continue to work hard to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible moving forward. And again, wish the Secretary a speedy recovery.
Well, and over at the White House, John Kirby was at the podium and was being asked a lot of questions about this by the White House press corps. And he seemed to take umbrage with the suggestion that things weren't being handled during the time that the Secretary of Defense was in the hospital, unbeknownst to a lot of people.
No time was the commander-in-chief, not always in command and control of our military forces around the world. And over the course of those days, we did take military action that he approved, taking out a senior militia commander in Iraq with what we call a dynamic strike, a strike that he had approved many days before, for which the theater commander had full permission to execute. We did shoot down drones and missiles in the Red Sea, our ships at sea, because he made sure they had the existing authorities and the capabilities and the training to do that. So he has been on top of these issues all the way throughout. Now, look, what your question kind of gets to is, and I've seen some of the sniping out there, how effective can the process be if the secretary can be gone and we don't know about it? I think what you need to understand, and what I hope people will understand, is that the national security decision-making process does not require, in fact, should not require, cabinet-level officials being the sole people in the room making decisions on any given day. You staff these things from the middle up, and then the cabinet officials, whether it's Secretary Blinken or Secretary Austin, come together as appropriate to make the key decisions, which happened. It happened on the 1st of January.
Well, okay, so, nothing was missed. They say everything went fine. It's not a big deal, but they're having a complete review, and they'll make sure it never, ever, 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 ever happens again. There are some real questions here, especially about his deputy secretary not being fully apprised of what was going on, and being sent the proper people so that if a nuclear decision needed to be made, it could be made. And to me, I think it would have been chaos had something broken loose during that time that was unexpected, and we don't need that kind of chaos. Moving on to other news from the swamp. Remember Ray Epps, 62-year-old Ray Epps? He was outside the Capitol on January 6th, seemed to be sort of egging a lot of people on. And it was interesting because at first the FBI wanted to talk to him. Then all of a sudden they didn't want to talk to him. And the speculation was that, well, maybe he was working for the FBI out there trying to get people to do things that would entrap them. That was later, denied by the FBI and strongly denied by Epps. But again, they finally decided they would level some charges at him, and he's been sentenced. You ready? The rioter, 62-year-old Ray Epps, sentenced to probation in a deal with federal prosecutors after pleading guilty to a single charge of engaging in disorderly or disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds. He's repeatedly denied he was a government informant, that he encouraged people to breach the Capitol to get them in trouble. He was ordered to pay $500 in restitution and serve 100 hours of community service, and he's on probation for a year. Prosecutors had requested 6 months for Epps, but that didn't happen. All right. Now this. From the Daily Signal. A member of Congress investigating January 6, 2021 protest at the U.S. Capitol believes the FBI had 200 undercover assets both inside and outside the building. We believe that there were easily 200 FBI undercover assets operating in the crowd outside the Capitol, embedded into groups that entered the Capitol or provoked entry to the Capitol, said Representative Clay Higgins, Republican of Louisiana. He appeared on the Tucker Carlson Network for an interview that aired Saturday, the third anniversary of the day now commonly known as J6. Given the scope of the operation, the number of doors where entry was allowed or even encouraged, and the number of people that were actually outside the Capitol that entered, we believe 200, and he believes that's a conservative number, FBI agents were in the crowd. It's his estimate. FBI Director Christopher Wray has refused to answer questions about this and about undercover FBI assets on January 6th, telling Higgins at a congressional hearings, "You should not read anything into my decision not to share information on confidential human sources." So take that one and think about it. There's a budget deal that the Speaker of the House has signed on to. It's a $1.6 trillion spending deal. Those are the parameters of the deal. A lot of T's to cross and I's to dot. But now it's coming word that enough Republicans are upset with the deal and that spending outline that has been released and the negotiations between Speaker Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, that it's entirely possible that the budget will not pass without a lot of support from Democrats. There will be some Republicans. You can't get this alone on a Republican vote, because a fair number of Republicans are saying that they will not vote for the measure. And so the only way Johnson can get this across the threshold is to count on a certain number of Democrat votes. And that really, when you do that, it really hacks off Republican rank and file members who say we should not be doing anything that requires the Democrats to get us across the threshold. But that apparently will happen. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that she will oppose the budget deal because it does nothing to secure the border, stop the invasion, or stop the weaponized government targeting Biden's political enemies and innocent Americans. But you know what? You don't know what you're going to have until the final document is produced. And one of the things I hope that Johnson will do is whatever you come up with, you've got to have people, you've got to give them time to look at it, so they're not being asked to vote on something they have not read or they don't know enough about. Will that happen? It'll be interesting to see. And then there was this, Anthony Fauci met behind closed doors yesterday for, I guess, a deposition. And what came out of it? Well, apparently there have been some leaks. House Republicans said they revealed a lack of oversight of research funded by the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during the first of 2 days interviewing the agency's former director, Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci's testimony uncovered drastic and systemic failures in America's public health systems. While leading the nation's COVID-19 response and influencing public narratives, he simultaneously had no idea what was happening under his own jurisdiction at NIAID. According to Chairman Brad Winstrup of Ohio, who's on the select committee, subcommittee on coronavirus pandemic. Fauci led the largest branch of the National Institutes of Health for over 35 years, is a key witness for Republicans investigating over the origins of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that caused COVID-19. And the subcommittee's Republicans issued a report identifying that Fauci was intimately involved in the drafting and publication of a scientific paper that was published in Nature Medicine that purportedly debunked the hypothesis that the virus originated at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which now all the evidence seems to suggest is exactly where it originated. So they are asking him some very tough questions behind closed doors, and perhaps we will find out more when those transcripts hopefully are released. It's now 51 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken trying to end the war in Gaza, crime in Tennessee at a women's prison, and General Assembly has begun here in the volunteer state. Those stories and more, 5 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, coming up at 5:05, the latest on the big news today that Mike Vrabel is out as the head coach of the Titans. Mac Morey will lead us through all of that, and we'll hear from Amy Adams Strunk. Is that Amy Adams Strunk? That's right.
That's it, yeah.
And about this whole decision. In the meantime, let me share this with you. We have about 3 minutes before we get to the news. Aspirin. Look, it's like coffee. You read all of these studies. One study says aspirin is good for you. One study says aspirin is not good for you. It's the same thing with coffee and sugar and all these things. Well, coffee's not good for you. Coffee is good for you. It's not good for you. It's bad. Who knows what to think about all this. But this is an interesting story. Aspirin is a long and established, is from the Epoch Times, a widely used medication with a rich history. Well known for uses for pain relief. You got a headache, you take an aspirin. It's anti-inflammatory and anticoagulant properties. That's well known. But apparently, cancer patients who take a low-dose aspirin daily experience a 21% reduction in mortality.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a whole lot of evidence to suggest that taking aspirin, proactively can help you not get cancer. But if you do have it, it apparently can keep it from spreading. And the metastasizing is the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cancer, one of the leading global causes of mortality. There are 19.3 new cancer cases each year worldwide, nearly 10 million deaths. And according to statistics, 1 in 6 reported deaths are attributed to cancer. So let me move through this stuff. Aspirin's role in reducing metastatic cancer spread. The metastasis or spread of cancer is a major cause of death, and aspirin can inhibit platelet aggregation, therefore reducing the spread of cancer cells. The comprehensive review found that aspirin can lower the risk of cancer metastasis by 38% to 52%. Wow. Now, there are some downsides to cancer. It can, if you have problems with your stomach, then sometimes it can cause bleeding in the stomach and all of that. But listen to this. Aspirin lowers risk of various cancers. The results revealed that compared to patients not using aspirins, those who regularly took aspirin had a 27% chance of reduced risk for colorectal cancer, 33% reduced risk of squamous cell esophageal cancer, 39% reduced risk of adenocarcinoma cancer, 38% risk of hepatobiliary tract cancer, and 22% reduced risk in pancreatic cancer. There was no significant change in the risk of head and neck cancer. So if you got cancer and you don't want it to spread, one of the things apparently, what harm could come from it at this point?
Yeah.
Take a dose of aspirin every day. How about
right.
that? I don't know. 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 40 degrees in Nashville. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tomorrow. Full weather forecast and a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel working to convince its leaders to find a peaceful end to its war in Gaza. Andy Field.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken's already enlisted a number of Arab states' support in finding a peaceful end to the Israeli-Hamas war, but insists that the U.S. supports Israel's objective
of making sure that October 7th can't be repeated,
along with making sure that Israel does
better by protecting civilians and making sure that people get the assistance that they need.
Israeli leaders have made clear the war will not end until Hamas is destroyed.
And over 22,000 people have died in Gaza since the attacks from Hamas on October 7th. Crime in Tennessee, 63-year-old Glenn Flora is now in jail because officials say that he attempted to bring a drug-filled balloon inside to a women's prison. He was trying to bring them in for his girlfriend's sister. The balloon was concealed in his mouth and filled with over 6 grams of methamphetamine. Flora was arrested and charged with introduction of drugs into a penal institution and possession of a controlled substance, both felony charges. He remains jailed on a $40,000 bond. Right now, in the volunteer state, gun reform advocates hope to persuade the General Assembly to enact new gun safety laws during this year's session. They rallied using a group of 5 to 10-year-olds, and this is 10-year-old Ivy Ogle, who spoke of the Covenant School shooting.
My friend was there at Covenant that day and saw some horrible stuff. Now, she's scared of things I've never thought to be scared of, like sitting in a dark movie theater and loud banging noises. And she even wants to put bulletproof glass in her house.
Meanwhile, there's a new bill to release all records on the Covenant School shooter to the public. And the man who was seen around the world last week attacking a judge in Las Vegas during his sentencing for battery appeared in court today on new counts from that attack. It came one day after he was in court, finally receiving his sentence in the previous case. Here's Alex Stone.
Hello, are you Mr. Redden? Wearing a surgical mask and shackles, Deober Redden appeared in front of a new judge on a list of charges stemming from his attack seen on video that went viral as he jumped, flying over the bench of Judge Mary Kay Holthus last week. The new judge laying out the many new counts.
Count 1, attempt murder, victim 60 years of age or older, a felony.
Redden will not be able to post bail because he's already in jail in the previous battery case he was being sentenced for when he was seen attacking the judge.
And some entertainment news. The 2024 Bonnaroo Music Festival lineup has come out. Some of the big names headlining: Post Malone, Red Hot Chili Peppers. The festival will be held from June 13th to the 16th in Manchester. The pre-sale window for tickets opens this Thursday at 10 a.m. And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on this Tuesday, January 9th. Brian Wilson in the chair for hour number 3 of The Drive. So pull up a chair or sit back or turn up the radio if you're driving, because we got breaking news here today that people in Nashville will care deeply about. And so we're moving up McMurray's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
All right, it's time for McMurray's Wide World of Sports. Yes, that's right. It's a fan favorite. We're doing it early because we have big sports news today. In fact, let's just stop that right there and get into it. McMurray is standing by to do his segment a little early because Mike Vrabel is now out as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, something that's been sort of whispered about for the last a few weeks of what was a not particularly good season for the Titans. So McMurray knows all things about all things having to do with sports, and so we thought we'd bring him in for a longer segment today. And by the way, if you have strong feelings about what has happened, we'll have the phone lines open at 615-737-9986 so you can weigh in, and we'll hear your thoughts in just a moment. Mac, it'd been whispered, rumored, and then today finally came word that Vrabel is out. What happened?
And, Brian, we had talked about these rumors, Bill Belichick, he loves New England, all of these sorts of things, but it always been kind of, I don't know, it wasn't fully serious to me. I didn't take them all 100% legitimate, and I thought, he may not be the Titans head coach, but he won't be fired. Surely he won't be fired. He's too good. He'll be traded. Surely the Titans can gain some assets here from, such a widely regarded, good, even great head coach in the National Football League. Yeah, 56-48 in 6 seasons. That's the 12th best record over the NFL in that 6-year span. And he did that with the likes of, Mariota. He had Dobbs a few games last year. A large part of that with Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback that he truly built. Seeing Tannehill at the peak of his powers, that was with the Titans. That was with head coach Mike Vrabel. That wasn't with the Miami Dolphins. Trust me, that he was on the bench under Mariota for a long time. Vrabel built these assets up, and that's a large story that I think should really overlay his tenure here, is the roster mismanagement and what he was having to do to keep this team competing, which, he did consistently. Yes, over the last year and a half, it was rough. I don't know the exact. I think it's 13-21 in the last 2 seasons and 5-18 in the last 6-18 in the last 24 games. It wasn't pretty, but an AFC Championship appearance, 3 playoff appearances, a Coach of the Year appearance. So if you make some decision like this, Brian, you need to have a plan. And Amy Adams spoke today. I would love to hear what she had to say too, Brian.
Let's listen to some of her thoughts.
Okay, perfect. This is her on our sister station, The Zone, talking with voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. This is about 2 minutes, Brian. I think all of it's worth it. So let's give it a listen.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, give me 1 second here.
Mike, it was a very difficult decision. And Mike was our head coach for 6 seasons, and he brought a lot of passion every day to work, to players, to staff, to the organization. And I will always appreciate what Mike brought and wish the best for Mike and his family.
Can you tell us the reason or reasons that you decided to make this change?
The last 2 seasons have been very disappointing. And the fans felt it. I felt it. We made changes last year, and I came to believe we needed to make a change to the coaching staff.
People want to know, when did you come to this decision?
It wasn't a last night or a month ago or whenever. It's just kind of been all season watching, and it was difficult, but I thought it was time to make that change.
There's been discussion in a lot of different circles about the possibility of trading the head coach. Was consideration given to trading Mike Vrabel?
Well, yes, there was, but there's a bit of misconception about a coach's contract say, versus a player's contract. A coach's contract, you can't trade them unless they're a willing partner to that trade. So, yes, we thought about it, but at the end of the day, with league rules the way they are, it would have maybe put us back 3 weeks. And, you know, honestly, to get the right head coach, I was just not willing to go to the back of the line and take a chance of missing out on someone we really wanted.
All right, so I'm going to put two questions together. Will the new head coach report to Ran Carthon or to you? And who will have control of the 53-man roster?
Today is about the coaching staff. I'm not quite ready to answer that question. I still have some things to work through, but I will answer both those questions at the end of the process.
So when it's done, you'll make this clear publicly who the head coach reports to and who has control of the roster.
Absolutely.
She says absolutely. At the end there.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Well, you know, that's fascinating to hear some of her thinking on it. But what I've been picking up from talking to a lot of people and reading everything I can get my hands on about this, it became rather toxic there in the Titans organization, with the head coach wanting to do certain things, the general manager not necessarily agreeing with it, and Amy Adams Strunk not particularly thrilled with the dynamic. So there was some uneasiness among the three, and Vrabel was getting frustrated. And so I don't think he's particularly sad about this. I think he'll land somewhere, don't you imagine?
Oh, I think he'll be on everyone's short list with a vacancy, even with teams that don't have a vacancy, who maybe aren't happy with their head coach. He will be considered there.
Well, you know, that's the thing. Sometimes in an organization, whether it's where you work at work, sometimes a situation you find yourself in, you feel like you're doing good work and you're doing the best you can, but it's just the dynamics, the human dynamics of the situation are just not good. And I've had that in my own career. I know at times, and you have to say, well, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to go do something else. So it has come to fruition. Now the question becomes, number one, what happens to Vrabel? And then number two, who do we look at for potentially our next head coach of the Tennessee Titans?
And that's why I don't think she answered that last question clearly on who answers to who, because she doesn't know the answer to who the next head coach will be. And that answer to who answers to who will greatly change the candidates who are willing to come and coach this team. Coaches like candidates like maybe Bill Belichick, if he were to get fired from New England. That's a guy who's going to want to say in who is on the field, what players they draft. A Harbaugh at Michigan, that's a tenured coach who's just won a national championship. You can bet your bottom dollar, Brian, he's not coming into an NFL franchise who, by the way, he carried a team to a Super Bowl, the 49ers, a few years back. Right. He's not coming into a franchise saying, oh, yeah, the GM, he's got all the say. He's got 100% of the say. She needs to know that answer, and that needs to be public sooner rather than later. And you can discuss the friction that Vrabel and Carthon may have had. Ran Carthon spoke to the media this afternoon, Brian, for the first time since the offseason, and his comments contradicted that statement and those rumors. And let's listen to this here real quick from Ran Carthon, general manager of the Titans.
I know there's been a lot of speculation over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been about the nature of Mike and I's relationship. I will say that Mike and I, we've never had any issue versus whether it's personal or professional. We worked well together and had a good relationship. We were in lockstep. So I want to finally come out and, dispel that. And, I wish Vrabes, nothing but the best. Consider him a friend, and I feel like we'll be that way moving forward.
Well, that's interesting.
Yep. And
what do you draw from that?
Well, later on in this press conference, he made it clear that he was not in the room when that decision was made between Amy and head coach Mike Vrabel. He was not in the room discussing that firing. He wasn't a part of that decision, and he's out there, brand new general manager of the Titans. He's spoken to the media now twice. This is his third time speaking to the media. It's been 5 months the last time the media spoke to him, and now he's got to come here by himself and to speak on a huge decision this franchise just made that he wasn't a part of. And I just feel bad for him out there. I think Amy Adams is making a mistake sending him out there into the media wolves by himself from a decision that he didn't make with all of this speculation of friction and drama. He didn't fire him. And it seems very clear that he wasn't exactly, against Vrabel. He said lockstep
quote, me and Vrabel were lockstep.
This whole situation is
Wow.
kind of giving me Jerry Jones vibes.
Yep.
You know, where the owner has just got a little bit too much say in what I mean, I would think as an owner, you hire a general manager to run your organization. I mean, he should be the guy making the calls. Obviously, you're still the owner, and you can say, "Hey, I think we may need to do something."
Yeah, of course.
But to hear that he wasn't even there
Well,
when
yeah,
this happened,
and you know, I've talked before about having watched the Redskins for so many years
Yeah.
when I was in
Yeah, of
Washington,
course.
where little Danny Snyder was, putting his fingers in everybody's pie, and wanted to have say. But I mean, his instincts about what was the right thing to do were invariably wrong, and he just kept driving the team into the dirt and driving the team into the dirt, and and finally, it got so bad that the Redskins, now the Commanders, that basically had to find a new owner. Now there were some other issues alongside that in Washington that led to him having to sell the team, but I mean, it's not good when an owner gets too involved in the day-to-day operations of a football team when you've hired really competent people to run it. And if that's the issue, and what I'm picking up is some suggestion that maybe it was, then that's very interesting and something that, will not get better with a new coach.
Exactly.
if you can even find one.
If you can even find one. And, you mentioned the relationship issues. I wonder if those relationship issues were really between Amy and head coach Mike Vrabel. That's the personality friction that I think may have existed, because you make the decision as an owner last season to fire general manager John Robinson going into this season in the offseason. That indicates that you have a problem with the roster management. You don't think the players on the field are good enough. You're firing the general manager. And now you're going to fire the coach 1 year later after this roster got worse because you fired a GM, you traded players, you got rid of – you're in a rebuild mode for all intents and purposes. And so now you're going to fire the coach. So I just don't really understand the logic from her right now. I don't understand.
I met her one time at a social event, and she seemed completely lovely, but I'm not working for her, so I don't know.
Exactly. I'm sure she's a splendid woman.
Yeah, so I don't know about all that. Well, I would like to know, who do you think is the best candidate to come here and take this team, rebuild it, and perhaps have a better season than we've had in a while?
Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. Mickey Ryan was on the show here earlier, Brian, and he mentioned him, 36, 37 years old. He's a brand new OC over at Houston under rookie head coach DeMeco Ryans, who will most likely win Coach of the Year this season. They have been absolute dynamite, brand new quarterback, a bunch of young wide receivers, a lot of mirroring situations, from Houston to Tennessee, a new young quarterback, some new young weapons, a rebuilding young offensive line that's going to take draft picks and free agency. That would be the pick from me, or Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. Either way, this is most likely an offensive hire. After 6 seasons with a defensive-minded head coach, you probably go in the other direction now. You want offense. You got Will Levis. Let's go.
All right. Listen, Mac, great analysis, great sound. Thank you so much for all of that. Now, before we go to commercial break, the phone lines are open at 615-737-9986. You've heard what we have to say about it. You've heard from Amy. You've heard from the general manager. We will not hear from Mike Vrabel until he shows up someplace else, but I'd like to know what you think. Good idea, bad idea? You mad, you happy, you sad? Let us know, 615-737-9986. Right now, it is 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Titans head coach Mike Vrabel fired after 6 seasons with the team. We hear from general manager Ran Carthon on that decision, and a trial underway in Georgia discussing the voting machines. 5:30 here at All Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, well, you heard the news. Vrabel is out. You've heard our analysis, and what we think about it. We'd like to know what you think about it. Is it a good idea, a bad idea? Are you happy? Are you mad? Are you sad? 615-737-9986. Got some open phone lines right now. Start with Jason in Smyrna. Jason, good afternoon or good evening. It's Brian. You're on with The Drive. What's your thought about all this?
Well, I will have to say that due to the millions and billions of dollars that's being spent on the Titans organization to build a new stadium, etc., I believe by her 3-week comment that they already have someone that they are trying to negotiate with, and hopefully they can bring somebody in that will take what the owner has designated for her team, because obviously I feel like she is in full control and wants to be, and take whatever she provides them and have a winning season. It's been way too long, and they've been very patient with Vrabel.
Were you ready for a change?
Absolutely. There again, the price that PSLs pay and things in order to be able to see the games, we deserve to be able to see a winning team, and there's no excuse for multiple losing records.
All right, listen, thank you so much for that, Jason. Greatly appreciate it. Susan from Franklin is up next. Susan, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on The Drive. What do you think?
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Being a PSL holder from day one, I'm disappointed, I'm mad, and I'm sad for him. Like Max said it perfectly, you took away all the good players and you expect them to have a winning season. You can't. And then they fire him, and it's not his fault. It's very frustrating, makes me angry.
All right, so what would your message be to the management and ownership of the Titans?
Gosh, I don't know. Think a little bit harder before you make decisions. I don't know. And think about us, like the fans. With the game, after the game, Derrick Henry saying his speech after the game, he's evidently going to be gone too, and Tannehill, and then you're going to have a new coach, and the team's going to be terrible.
Well, okay. Thank you very much for that, Susan. I appreciate it. Adam in Nashville. Adam, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on The Drive. What's your thought about all this, Adam?
Well, Brian, I agree with the previous caller completely. I mean, how do you expect the guy to win when you take away all his good players? I think he's an excellent coach. I'm very happy for him because he's a hot commodity as far as I'm concerned. And if I'm any number of teams, I would be looking at him really hard and get him on board, because he did the best he could with what he had, but he had no power to put the pieces that he needed in place, and that's why she fired the previous general manager. Yeah. So now, he made it through this season. It was a lot of injuries. It was a very tough situation, and I think I'm very happy for Mike, because she clearly doesn't know how to make a good decision, and I guarantee you what's going to happen is he's going to go someplace and he's going to make her eat crow, because he's going to take that team all the way.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that works out. Listen, I think that's an interesting observation. Thank you, Adam. Let's get to Marie, also in Nashville. Marie, what's your thought about it? Are you happy, sad, mad, glad, whatever?
Well, I just have a message, and this is for the management and for the owner. Let your coaches coach. Get us a star quarterback. This team has not had one since Steve McNair. Let your coaches coach, not the owner, not the general manager. Let the coaches do what they know best. the owners don't know how to coach. They're owners, and I understand they have their own way, but get us a star back. This Nashville deserves it. The fans deserve it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. And that's all we have to say about that.
I love it.
Yeah. Listen, great comments. People are passionate about this stuff. They
Absolutely.
really are. Yeah. And, look, it is going to be interesting to see how this all works out.
Yeah.
But, I'd like to remain optimistic that they'll get back upright. Very quickly, I know I'm going over. But, I know what it's like to be in an organization. I worked in a newsroom in D.C. for 12 years. I think over a period of something like 6 years, we had 7 news directors.
Wow.
Constant change. It was just unbelievable. And 6 of those news directors I got along with great. I mean, I had a great relationship with them, and everything was great. 7th one comes in, and it was just like we did not mesh at all. Her vision and my vision of what I should be doing, and her vision of what a show should be, just did not mesh at all. And and it was clear that she didn't want me to be around, and I said, okay, I won't be around. And sometimes you have to walk away from a situation like that when it's not working, and say, I'm going to go do something else. And you know what? I was without work for 4 days.
Yep.
And then I got hired. I got let go by one branch of Fox and hired by another within 4 days, and got a nice pay raise out of the thing. So
Nice.
This sounds like
things
Vrabel.
Yeah,
This sounds like Vrabel.
Yep,
Listen,
probably will.
sometimes you just got to walk away and not want it that bad, and just see what happens. And I hope that Vrabel has a good outcome here. I do. It is 32 minutes, way over. I'm sorry, Mac. It's time for the news at 5:32 on Super Talk 99.7.
$5:32. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 39 degrees, some light rain around Middle Tennessee, and expect that. Some possible snow here tonight as well. Wind advisory in effect until midnight on Wednesday. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. You've heard it in sports all day. The Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons with the team. Overall in that time, 56-48 was the record. It was the 12th best record over that span. Titans general manager Ran Carthon spoke to the media for the first time since the offseason to dispel any rumors that him and coach were in disagreement.
I know there's been a lot of speculation over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been about the nature of Mike and I's relationship. I will say that Mike and I, we've never had any issue versus whether it's personal or professional. We worked well together and had a good relationship. We were in lockstep. So I want to finally come out and, dispel that. And, I wish Vrabes, nothing but the best. I consider him a friend, and I feel like we'll be that way moving forward.
And Carthon says he feels as if him and Vrabel had good collaboration. He thinks it comes down to owner Amy Adams and her long-term vision with Vrabel not lining up with that. And Carthon also said that he thinks they're going to keep that vision pretty tight to the vest until they get a new head coach. He says he feels as if his job is to serve the coaching staff and bring them good players. The Titans made the playoffs 3 times in those 6 years under head coach Mike Vrabel. And a trial underway in Georgia over whether the state should stop using its current voting machines and switch to paper ballots. Derek Dennis.
At issue are touchscreen voting machines used throughout Georgia, made by Dominion Voting Systems. Activists argue the machines are so unreliable, they're unconstitutional, and they want the state to switch to hand-marked paper ballots tallied by scanners, while also adding more post-election auditing to look for errors. State election officials say the system is secure and reliable, and there are safeguards already in place to handle any irregularities. Dominion voting machines came under scrutiny after the 2020 election when surrogates of former President Trump falsely claimed the machines were used to steal the election from him.
And that is the latest news. Traffic, weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Listen, why would you shop at DT McCall's? Well, I'll tell you, why wouldn't you shop there? You should be shopping there. I mean, if you need something for your home, whether it's furniture, whether it's appliances, I mean, anything you can think of for your home, you're going to find it at DT McCall's. Huge selection of appliances and furniture. If you need mowers, if you need gun safes, whatever it is you need, you're going to find it at DT McCall's. And one of the things you're going to love about them is they have free delivery. I mean, how many times have you purchased an appliance at one of the big box stores, and when you did that, you had to pay extra for the cords and the hoses, paid extra for delivery, paid for the haul away. That price they gave you up front turned out not to be such a good price, did it? At DT McCall's, you get free delivery, free setup, and free haul away. Company that has been run by the same family for over 100 years, and you don't make it that long in a business without having a reputation for treating people right, and I think that they do. One other thing I love about DT McCall's, they sell products made and manufactured in the great state of Tennessee. That's right. Keep your dollars local, right? Tennessee, England furniture is not made in England at all. It's made in Tennessee. And I got a mattress that's exclusive to DT McCall's, made in Tennessee. I sleep on one, and it's a great mattress. Listen, DT McCall's, 5 convenient locations. Find out about where they are and all the things they could do for you and your family and your home by going to dtmccalls.com. It's 40 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. I want to talk about the situation at the border. You know, there's a big monumental battle that is developing in the nation's capital over the border. Republicans in the House of Representatives have drawn a line, and they've gotten some support by Republicans in the Senate to not, allow anything to happen really on Capitol Hill of any significance until the Biden administration agrees to do something about the border situation. I mean, they're basically, saying, nothing's going to move, not a spending plan, Nothing's going to move. You're not going to get money that you want for Ukraine or Israel or anything. Nothing is going to move until you resolve the border issue and you bring some actions to bring some control down on the border. And so that, look, I'm hoping they stand their ground on this, and I think that they will. In conjunction with that standoff, House Speaker Mike Johnson released a list yesterday. Well, no, released it today, I'm sorry, detailing, you ready? 64 actions that President Biden has taken that wrecked the border and created the worst level of immigration, illegal immigration in history. The list comes as Johnson and Biden stake out opposite positions in negotiations over a national security spending bill, with the Louisiana Republican pushing for major change to border policy and the Democrat president resisting. I mean, he's standing his ground, both sides. So who's going to blink first? Mr. Johnson said Mr. Biden started breaking the border on his first day in office when he canceled border wall construction and proposed an amnesty for illegal immigrants. See, when you hear, Karine Jean-Pierre say from the podium at the White House, well, on day one, he put forward his ideas on how to fix the border problem, and the Republicans didn't. Well, because amnesty is an absolute non-starter, and it should be. Amnesty is not the answer. I mean, that's what the Democrats want. I don't believe in amnesty for people whose first act is to violate the laws of this country. I don't believe in amnesty for people who come across the river, circumvent the process, and take advantage of the situation to live in our country illegally, and then now we're going to reward them for that act, for breaking the law and having total disregard for what this kind the process and what this country is supposed to be, which is the rule of law. We are supposed to operate under the rule of law. I don't want those people being granted amnesty. I just don't. It's nothing personal. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are lovely people. Some of them are not. Some of them are. And then, I understand that some people are just looking for a better way of life. That's not what we have in this country. If you want to come to this country, there's a process. And so on day one, the reason that Republicans did not buy it is that the idea was a non-starter on Capitol Hill. It wasn't going anywhere. And Biden knew that. So for him to say, well, on day one, we did this, well, understand what they offered was something that was never going to be acceptable. President has continued, the story goes on in the Washington Times, with an expansion of catch and release, and most recently filed another lawsuit trying to derail Texas' own border security efforts. The speaker said, accusing the president of systematically dismantling the policies and rules that had worked to control the border in the last 18 months of the Trump administration. On more than 60 occasions, he manipulated the federal bureaucracy to open our borders to illegal immigrants, human trafficking, fentanyl, and potential terrorism. The result is a humanitarian and a national security catastrophe, the speaker has said. He's right. Part of the finger-pointing surrounding the high-stakes negotiations, Mr. Johnson says, given Mr. Biden broke the border, he can also fix things without turning to Congress. He says, they keep saying, well, Congress needs to act, Congress needs to act. No, the president can, again, undo these 60 things that he did, 64 things he did, and put it back in order in a matter with signing a couple of documents and making a couple of phone calls. President must use his executive authority to repair what is broken, and I'm calling on him to do so, said the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. This story from the Epoch Times: illegal aliens tried nearly 48,000 times to purchase firearms over the past quarter century. This is the ones we know about. The FBI logged more than 47,000 attempts by illegal aliens to purchase firearms at gun shops over the past 25 years. On January 2nd, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, reported that FBI currently has almost 14 million records of firearm applications that failed a national background check. Of these unique prohibiting events, the FBI index included 47,930 who were denied purchase of firearms because they were illegal aliens in the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. between November of 98 and November of 2023. While the 13.9 million unique prohibiting events cataloged by the FBI database represents events, not individual illegal aliens, the data point to a large number of migrants in the market for firearms. Whatever the total may be, it is one too many, writes Fair. And then there's this from Fox News. Mayorkas tells Border Patrol agents that above 85% of illegal immigrants released into the United States. They come in, and it's well more than 85%. In fact, I think it's more like, honestly, if the statistics that I've read are correct, it's like 96%. If you come across the border and you claim asylum, there's a 96% chance that you're going to be given, the ability to come into the country. You're not going to be turned away. Only according to the records that were put out yesterday, only about 4.4% of those who come and ask for asylum are turned back. It said you're not eligible for asylum. 96%. And you know why? Because the Biden administration has chosen to analyze and to look at these applications from a different lens than we had before. But he's admitting at least 85%. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas admitted that Border Patrol agents that the current rate of release for illegal immigrants apprehended at the southern border is above 85%. Made the remarks when meeting privately with agents in Eagle Pass, according to 3 Border Patrol sources who were in the room and heard the remarks themselves. The conversation happened during the muster for agents in the busy border area. Fox has told Mayorkas was asked directly about comments he made on Special Report when he was asked by anchor Brett Baer about reporting that 70% of migrants were released into the U.S. each day. It would not surprise me at all, he said at the time. Fox is told that on Monday, agents pushed him on those remarks, saying the number is even higher than 70%, and Mayorkas acknowledged the release rate is above 85%. And as I said, if you look at the data, it looks like it might be 96%. So impeachment hearings are coming. Then they will happen. And I think the House of Representatives will impeach Mayorkas. There may even be some Democrat votes for that. And then we're off to the races. But he's down there trying to make the case, well, we're doing everything that we can, when we know, of course, they're not doing everything that they can to solve the border problem. Look, Mike Johnson, in my humble opinion, as somebody who's watched Hill for a long time, seen speakers come, seen speakers go, I think he's doing a heck of a job in the early going here. And yeah, there may be some grumbling here and there by some people about, well, he shouldn't have signed off on that number. When you really understand the budget process, that number was pretty much already determined before he became speaker by the previous speaker, and he's sort of wedded to that. He can't really change it because it would go back on promises that had been previously made. But I tell you, I think that his instincts are good, and it seems like to me for the very first time we have a speaker that is willing to stand up to this administration on the issue of immigration, and I hope he stands his ground. Do not blink first. Make them change this situation. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Mike Vrabel no longer the Titans head coach after 6 seasons with the team here in Nashville. Crime in Tennessee, a man trying to sneak in drugs to a women's prison, and an update on that Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft that's remained grounded. 6 o'clock, Super Talk, 1097 WTN.
I just happened to be glancing over at my monitor, and, Fox News is holding these town hall sessions in Iowa. Today it's with DeSantis. And apparently, they had to wrestle somebody in the audience to the ground. I don't know what happened.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. They had to stop for just a moment, and there was a wide shot, and you saw, look, and I know about how they bring security. Fox takes security really seriously, and there are always, in any event that is done, a ton of people. Now, some of them with their noses that sort of bend to one direction or the other. I mean, some big old boys. And they pounced on that guy big time. So I'd love to find out what that was all about. Anyway, we got a few minutes here before the top of the hour in time for news. I want to talk to you an update on that Boeing 737 that the door just blew off the aircraft at 16,000 feet. Apparently, there are 2 major airlines that fly a lot of these 737 MAX 9 jets, United and Alaska Air. And they're going through now and looking at all of their aircraft and examining those doors on the exit row. And what they're finding is that a lot of these doors, there are bolts that were not snugged the way they should have been snugged. You know how to snug a bolt?
I torque that baby down.
That's right, man. You have to to a certain tolerance, you got to really tighten them up. And apparently they're finding a lot of them were loose. And so, it's surprising that something hasn't happened before this. The NTSB, of course, looking at it and said, we don't know exactly what happened, but I can tell you by the time we are complete, we will find out why this is happening. They issued an emergency order Saturday, which has temporarily grounded dozens and dozens of MAX 9 jets. By the way, we talked about it earlier. When the door blew off, 2 phones were sucked out of the aircraft and fell from 16,000 feet. And some guy walking along the road there near Portland found one of them on the side of the road, completely intact and still operating.
Still on.
It took a licking and kept on ticking. That's what had happened. Wow. 59 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much that care will cost before it is delivered. They have smart care plans starting at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. You marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. You see them the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded waiting rooms, and they treat naturally whenever possible. It is also, and this is important, a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Call this number, 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 39 degrees in Nashville. Wind advisory still in effect until tomorrow at midnight. Could see gusts of up to 45 miles an hour. Forecast latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Starting in sports, a bombshell report came out today saying Tennessee Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons with the team. In that time, he led them to a 56-48 record. That's the 12th best record over that span. Titans general manager Ran Carthon spoke to the media for the first time since the offseason to dispel any rumors
that him and Coach were in disagreement.
I know there's been a lot of speculation over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been about the nature of Mike and I's relationship. I will say that Mike and I, we've never had any issue versus whether it's personal or professional. We worked well together and had a good relationship. We were in lockstep. So I want to finally come out and, dispel that. And, I wish Vrabes, nothing but the best. Consider him a friend, and I feel like we'll be that way moving forward.
And Carthon says he feels as if him and Vrabel had good collaboration. He thinks it comes down to owner Amy Adams and her long-term vision for the franchise, and Vrabel not lining up with that. He said he feels as if his job is to serve the coaching staff and bring them quality players. The Titans, in those 6 seasons under Vrabel, made the playoffs 3 times. Crime in the Volunteer State. 63-year-old Glenn Flora is now in jail because officials say that he attempted to bring a drug-filled balloon inside to a women's prison. He was trying to bring them in for his girlfriend's sister. The balloon was concealed inside of his mouth, and it was filled with over 6 grams of methamphetamine. Flora was arrested, charged with introduction of drugs into a penal institution and possession of a controlled substance, both felony charges. He remains jailed on a $40,000 bond. And the FAA saying today that Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft will remain grounded for now after an unused door blew off an Alaska Airlines MAX 9 last week in flight. Here's Alex Stone with some details.
One day after giving airlines initial instructions for how inspections should be done to get Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft back into the air, today the FAA saying every 737 MAX 9 with a door plug like the one on the Alaska MAX 9 will remain grounded until the FAA finds each can safely return to flight. The FAA saying safety, not speed, will determine when the MAX 9 flies again. It comes after United and Alaska Airlines reported finding loose hardware in the door plug areas they've looked at.
In some entertainment news, the 2024 Bonnaroo Music Festival lineup has come out. Some of the big names headlining the fest are Post Malone and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The fest will be held from June 13th to the 16th in Manchester, Tennessee. The pre-sale window for tickets opens this Thursday at 10 a.m. And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic are next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. 6 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, in for the fourth and final hour on this 9th day of January. Listen, it's breezy outside, and, if you haven't already brought in the cushions, it's too late. That's a summer thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they're all in storage at this point.
Yeah, I'm still cleaning up messes from last night. I mean, I got all kinds of things that were blown over and blown around, and some that I haven't even found yet. So I'm gonna have to get on that. I've been thinking more. I was gonna go a different direction here, but I'm gonna just stop for a moment. Been thinking a lot about the whole Vrabel thing, and the larger lessons that can be learned. We don't know what happened in that conversation with Vrabel and the owner of the Titans. We're hearing from the general manager, and he seemed to be saying, "Hey, I didn't have any issues with Vrabel. I had a great relationship with him. We worked well together, zero problems." So makes you wonder what's going on and why Vrabel decided to or Amy Adams decided that it's over. It's over. We need to end this relationship. But I can tell you, in my own life, there have been times where I had to say, look at a situation and say, look, if you're not happy with me, then perhaps I don't want to be here. And nothing personal. I mean, it's these things. I always look at situations like this. Well, it's your candy store. And if that's what you want, and then I don't think I can do that, then it's up to me to say I'm gonna part ways as a friend, and walk away with your head held high, and say I appreciate the opportunities that I've had, time to move on, and thank you for this, and let's part as friends, even though we may have a disagreement about this, that, or the other, nothing personal. And no sense getting angry about it. And that approach for me has worked out well so many times where I've needed to make a change in my employment situation. I never take it personally. I just look at it and say, well, it worked for a while and then it didn't start to work. And so, maybe it's time for me to go do something else. Now, I'm not talking my own current situation. I love the job that I have and I love the people I work with, but I've noticed that that's the way to do it. And I think there's some value in just saying, okay, I think I still have value, but you don't. So let me go see what else is out there. And let's just, be nice about it so that we don't burn any bridges. That has happened to me like a couple of times. And I mentioned before that I was working at a TV station in D.C. doing the morning news. And I had a series of news directors who came and went. And then I got to this one news director. Everybody I'd gotten along with great. Everything was fine. They loved what I was doing. They loved what I brought to the table. But this last news director came in. Boy, she just didn't like the cut of my jib. She didn't like me at all. And didn't like what I did and didn't like my approach to covering news or how to anchor or how to, handle news interviews. Just constantly on me. And I began to see that, I had a contract coming up and it probably wasn't going to go well. And then I just finally, I sort of said, look, let's part as friends. Let's be nice to each other. I'm not going to fight you on this. It's your candy store and I'm going to leave. And I left. And I didn't know exactly what was going to come next, but I just had confidence that something would reveal itself. That if you feel like you've done good work and people have had an opportunity to observe that work, then you're going to find, that opportunity that's next. And I think that's what's going on with Vrabel. I think Vrabel has just decided, look, you know what? I know I'm a good coach. I know that I have value on the market. Somebody else will find that value where apparently I had no value before. So, when I left that station, I literally did not know what was going to happen. And so I'd been an anchor for a while and I had not reported, and I wanted to do some reporting to sort of, sharpen my reporting chops for a few days. So I took a little part-time job with an agency in DC that covers news for stations around the country. It was it was just a little something to keep me over, tide me over while I decided what I wanted to do next. I was literally at that job 4 days. And I got a phone call, and you have to understand that over here you had no value. But somebody else looks at you and say, man, I could use that guy. He's got value. And so I got a phone call. It was Britt Hume. And he called me and said, look, we're doing this thing called Special Report. We're just kicking it off. And I don't have any real reporters. And I hear you're on the beach. And, that's the term we use in our industry when you're not working. I said, well, I'm doing a little work, but, I'd be interested in talking to you about it. Turned into a 12-year run on the Fox News Channel. So now I'm the same guy, right? Over here, they didn't like me. They didn't like the smell of my stuff. They didn't like what I was doing. They had no real place for me. But over here, not only did they like me, they gave me like a $75,000 raise. That's the best year I ever had. And you know what made it work is just saying, I'm not going to fight you on this. It's your candy store. You go and do your thing, and I'm going to go try to find something else. And I just have confidence that I'll land somewhere. I didn't know it was going to be 4 days, but it turned in great. By the way, it's what's weird about it is both of my bosses worked for the same company. The first boss worked for, WTTG, which was owned and operated by Fox News, or operated by, at that time, News Corp. And the Fox News Channel was operated by News Corp. So one boss paid, by the way, they had to pay severance to let me go.
Oh, that's good.
That was about $75,000 that they paid me in severance. So I took that. I knew I had a few months to sort of, wait for the next thing. And then 4 days later, I'm hired by a different tentacle of the same octopus and given a $75,000 a year raise. And I went to work at the network level. Worked out pretty well for me. I think that was the best year I ever had. And I thought it was going to be horrible, and it turned out to be really one of the best situations. I think that will happen for Vrabel. I think he's going to land on his feet, and I think that he does have value out there. And so anyway, it happened to me again later in my career, where again, it wasn't working out. I didn't feel like, again, that's how I ended up being here. I left on very good terms. And in fact, the person who had to deliver to me the news that I was not going to have my contract renewed ended up helping me get this job here. So
same company again.
Same company, right? Yeah. That has happened to me twice now. But the key was being nice about it on the way out the door. That I didn't burn any bridges. I didn't get angry. I didn't get hacked off. I just said, well, this has happened to me before. I'll just go over here and wait to find something else. So again, I'm not bragging about my situation. I'm just saying that I found that is a great way. In fact, my agent says that when the thing happened where I left WMAL, where my contract had not been picked up, and I literally went to my beach house. I was literally on the beach. And then I said very nice things on the way out. I never tried to trash the company that I work for. I was not upset with them. That's the way it goes sometimes in our business. And then to have the same, if I had trashed them on the way out the door, I wouldn't be here today. So, there's some value in just, understanding that the situation worked for a while and now it doesn't work for me. And so now it's time to go do something else. And I think Vrabel has sort of reached that point where for some reason he and the owner of the team were not seeing eye to eye. Better to just, be classy, walk out the door with your head held high and see what happens. And I really do believe he'll probably land on his feet.
You just, on the other side of things, you just have to hope that for Titans fans that the decision that was made to get rid of Vrabel does not impact and the way things were gone about doesn't impact their search for a new coach, because obviously you got to replace Coach Vrabel. So hopefully they don't have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to, well, I don't know if I want to work for the Titans.
Well, you never know what happens behind closed doors, and I don't claim to know anything about how the conversation went, but my sense of it, Vrabel is a class act, and I think he's a classy guy, and I have a feeling, they was just sort of like, we sort of came to this agreement that it wasn't working and we needed to go our separate ways. Vrabel is not going to is going to be, as everybody has said, a hot property. He'll land somewhere.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt in my mind. And and maybe the owner can find that coach who more adheres to her vision for the future. But look, we got a brand new stadium that's being built, and we've got I think a good quarterback with Levis. I think he's a really good quarterback for the future. Somebody come in here who really knows how to take those quarterbacks and take them to the next level. I think they'll do quite well. That one of the things that I think is important is having, and I've had this again in my career, I have run into people at key points in my career who really polished me up, really helped me understand. Now, when I was in TV, it was the managing editor of the television station, of all places in Mobile, Alabama, who took me, and I thought I pretty much understood how to do television news, and he just quickly disabused me of that notion that I didn't know near as much as I thought I knew, and helped me to understand how to do my job better. He was a taskmaster. He forced me to be better, forced me to be sharper, taught me how to tell a story in a more effective way. And when I was through there, I landed in Washington, D.C., from the 52nd market to the 7th market in one jump, which is as you know, people who climb these things, that's a big deal. But that person was remarkable. When I got into TV, I got into radio again, it was Bill Hess, my manager in Washington, D.C. I thought I knew everything there was to do about broadcasting. I thought this would be simple. It's radio. And I was very quickly disabused of the notion that I didn't know anything. And he taught me, things about radio that I'd never considered, and turned me, I think, into a better broadcaster. So I think it's really important to have great coaching at certain times. And so I think Levis is a guy, got the raw skills, got the raw talent, needs some polish. And I hope he gets a good coach in here who will know what to do with him and how to make him, our quarterback for the future. I think he's got the basic skills, and I think he's got the raw talent. And I think somebody just needs, as I say, to polish him up a bit.
Yeah, and I think to Mac's point that he said earlier, that I think he's probably right that the Titans will be going after an offensive-minded coach, a former offensive coordinator or something of the like, to do just that with Will Levis and the young offense.
Yeah. So look, it's a big day if you care about the Titans, and I think everybody in Nashville, at least has some level of interest in the Tennessee Titans and how they do, and I'm certainly among those. I'm not an avid sports fan, but I do watch the Titans and I do care, and I want them to do well. So let's hope that whatever took place today, let's hope that that Vrabel goes on to do great things somewhere else, and let's be happy for him if he does. And then on the other side of the equation, let's hope that whoever comes in here, can sort of right the ship as much as it needs to be righted, and then move this thing forward. And I think, I'm hoping that that's the best outcome here on a day when a lot of people are wondering what's going on. I don't think it's going to be bad for either side. I think it could be good for both.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do hope so for Mike Vrabel. I think he's a good guy. I think he really is a good guy, and I wish him well. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me talk to you about United Structural Systems. A lot of people, when they start to have problems with things like foundation cracks in the bricks or in the walls or doors that stick, and you realize, man, I got a problem here. Maybe it's a waterproofing issue, and Lord knows with all the rain we've had, you could have one of those right now. And you need to get somebody to look at it, but you're worried. What am I going to find? I can't afford this, blah, 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 blah. Just call USS. The truth is, they'll come out and they'll just give you a straight from the shoulder assessment of what's going on. It could be something big that needs to be fixed. Could be a small problem that will become bigger over time if you do nothing. Or you might turn out that it's just a minor thing and nothing much to worry about. What you need is peace of mind, and you'll get it from the experts at United Structural System. Over 25,000 satisfied customers. Like to hear from some of them? They rave about their experience with USS. Constance, excellent experience. Put me at ease during the entire process. Jeffrey, the service was A+++. On top of that, the work they did actually solved my problems. So there you go. I mean, what more do you want? A company that comes out and does what they say they're going to do. By the way, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at ussdn.com. Here's the number, 615-488-7855. It's 25 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Boy, I'm just looking at my feed here on the Super Talk TV. My head is very big in that.
You're very close.
I am zoomed in today. I don't know what happened there. Listen, we got a lot of stuff to talk about between now and 7 o'clock when the great one takes over. Some woke news. This is good stuff here. A federal court on Monday, that was yesterday, declared that President Joe Biden's team went too far in imposing new water and energy regulations on the two machines that we all love that make our life so much easier, dishwashers and washing machines. This from the Washington Examiner. In a ruling against Biden, the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and former President Donald Trump got it right when he moved to let consumers choose between machines that take longer and use less water and those that can do the job in an hour or less. The 25-page opinion was a victory for anti-regulatory groups and consumer choice advocates. It might have also been a win for the environment because the court agreed that lots of people avoid using green machines because they don't work well. Yes, that's exactly what I've been saying. Remember the low-flow toilet? That was Clinton. Remember dishwashers that, don't apparently work because they don't use enough water to wash the dishes? I mean, that's maddening. You come in, you wash your dishes, you go down, and they're not clean because the dishwasher didn't use enough water. And we try to have it's a green machine, but it doesn't do the job. The court said the Biden rules make Americans use more energy and water for the simple reason that purportedly energy-efficient appliances do not work as well. Americans who want clean dishes and clothes may use more energy and more water to pre-clean, re-clean, or hand-wash their stuff before, after, or in lieu of using DOA-regulated appliances. So what a big deal this is. This dates back to 2018 when the Competitive Enterprise Institute convinced the Trump administration to add choice into its developing regulations for dishwashers, in addition to pushing those that use less water but work for longer. They won support for machines that use more water back during the Trump year, and that's right. Let consumers choose what they want. Ideally, the market will take care of all this, because if there are enough people out there who decide they want really, really green dishwashers that will not use much water and not use much electricity, then they will ask for it. They put those on the market, and those people will buy it. But for the rest of us who really just want our dishwashers to work and our toilets to flush and our washing machines to wash, let us make the decision that we want. Let the market determine what should happen. So I'm tickled about this. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, good on you. Pushing back on the Biden administration's Green New Deal, you know what. Other woke news. The latest dirty word, according to the Wall Street Journal, in corporate America is ESG. Executives are now trying to walk away from some of the things that they embraced earlier. Following years of simmering investor backlash, political pressure, and legal threats over environmental, social, governance efforts, a number of business leaders are now making a conscious effort to avoid the once widely used acronym for such initiatives. On earnings call, many chief executives now employ new approaches. Some companies, Coca-Cola, rebranding corporate reports and committees, stripping ESG from the titles. Advisors are coaching executives on alternative ways to describe their efforts, proposing new terms like responsible business. On Wall Street, meanwhile, some firms are closing once popular ESG funds as the interest has faded. The shifting message reflects the reality that ESG is complicated, said Daryl Brewster, a former Kraft Foods and Nabisco executive, now heads chief executives for Corporate Purpose, a nonprofit of more than 200 companies focused on social impact. Listen, the ESG thing, that really, what I want a company to do is build a good product, and if I'm investing in it, I want it to make a profit. I don't want it to be a bad company. I want them to have some respect for their employees, et cetera. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I think they should be able to run the business as they see fit, and not with a look to, well, what are we doing in the ESG world? ESG is, I think, fading, as is this idea of DEI. And according to this report that I have from the Post Millennial, U.S. companies spent $8 billion on DEI initiatives in 2020. So, diversity, inclusion, and equity. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. They want to make sure that everything is, fine. But you know what? $18 billion. Guess who ends up paying for that? You and I. We got to pay for that. And I would just soon save the money and buy the product for just a little bit less. 31 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It is 39 minutes now past the hour, a drizzly evening here in the Middle Tennessee area. And they say that, we might see a flake or two tonight. I don't know. I wouldn't.
I think I did get a message that said there were a few snowflakes in Summertown. I can't see anything out my window. It's dark, but I don't think there's anything coming down out there.
I don't know. I'm here in Bucolic, Watertown. I just know that it was drizzling, and it's right now. I've got 36 degrees.
Yeah, 38 here. So
aloft it may be colder.
Yeah.
So then, if you hit the ground and the temperature's 36, it's not going to stick.
No.
But you might see a few flakes, I think. So, be aware of that. I was, by the way, checking the forecast. As I do, I'm obsessed by how cold it's going to be in Iowa when I'm there next Monday for the Iowa caucuses. When I look today, every day I've looked, it's gotten worse and worse.
Yeah.
So today, when I looked at the temperature projections for January 15th, 6 days from now, in Iowa, the high was -3. And I began to say, why did I think I wanted to go to Iowa? And then the overnight before will be -12.
Man,
and I'm telling you,
that's cold.
I've gotten used to living in warmer climes. I don't like that anymore. That hurts. That's a cold that hurts. But anyway, try to stay warm, and I got to go find where my inflatable flamingos went, because they got blown out of the pool last night.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't know where they ended up. Fred and Flo, the flamingos.
They found a new home, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I hope so. And then my bird cam, I've been talking about that bird cam that I have, and I keep checking it every day to see if the birds have visited the bird cam, and they have not. They've not yet found the bird.
Yeah.
But last night the bird cam blew over and fell onto the patio. And when I went out to clean it up, the birds had found the spilled bird seed, and they were all over. but the camera, of course, was upside down and went butt over tea kettle and crashed on the patio. So I got to put that back together. So listen, these are the great dilemmas of my life.
Yeah, first world problems there.
First world problems, I'm telling you. Okay, let's talk about politics for a little bit. Michelle Obama. Everybody thinks Michelle Obama is going to be the next Democrat presidential candidate. And I would tell you that I think if she were to be nominated, she could get the nomination, and she might actually oh man, are you kidding me? I'm being told that the temperature now is -4.
It keeps
-4.
getting better.
It gets worse. And the overnight, the night before, is -14.
Ugh.
Every time they update it, it gets colder and colder and colder. I'm sorry. I had an incoming message. Okay, so anyway, Michelle Obama. Would Democrats like to see Michelle Obama become their nominee? Yeah. Does Michelle Obama want to be the nominee? I don't know. She's making noises and she's doing interviews. She's saying she's terrified. Terrified she is by what may come out of the 2024 election. She's on a podcast called On Purpose, and the host asked Michelle Obama what keeps her up at night. What's going to happen in this next election? I'm terrified about what could happen, because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit, it affects us in a way sometimes I think people take for granted. She added the fact that people think that government is it really even do anything? And I'm like, oh my gosh, government does do everything for us, and we cannot take this democracy for granted. See, there's the fallacy in her thinking, that government does everything for us. I don't want government to do everything for me. I'd be very happy if the government never really bothered me during a given year. Leave me alone. I want less government, not more government. And sometimes I worry that we have a problem. So she's worried. Expressed deep concern about former President Donald Trump, his political strength, and his a possibility that he could become reelected. She went on to say, I've heard some people's analysis of her. She doesn't consider it the Obama-Biden administration. She considers it the Obama administration, we did this and we did that. And, I don't remember her being involved in any of that stuff. But one way or the other, I just don't think she has the fire in her belly. Every single time I heard anything about Michelle Obama when she was the first lady, it was and along the lines of, she is miserable. She hates being at the White House. She can't stand being cooped up in the White House. She doesn't like the fact that she has no anonymity. She can't go anywhere, can't do anything. And that the Secret Service was, that their entire role with Michelle was to get her out, so she could go places and do things. She spent a lot of time kayaking, apparently. Kayaking. Apparently she loves to kayak.
Where she got those big guns from.
Well, yeah, but remember when you heard that story about the cook at the Obama? This is what came to my mind. There was a cook at the Obama place on what was it? What's the name of that island?
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Thank you. And he drowned while he was kayaking, and they never revealed who was kayaking with that person. I just remember. There's another Obama who loves to kayak. Just wondered about that. Anyway, I don't think she's has the fire in her belly, but who knows? You want to know the story that really gets my attention about what's going on in 2024 with the Democrats is that apparently over the weekend, Bill Clinton and Gavin Newsom were seen palling around at a luxury resort in Mexico. Okay, so what's that all about? I think that they're talking about, okay, how do we get old Joe to step aside and make you the nominee? I think Clinton and Obama are still the big power brokers within the Democrat Party. And I don't think this is just out of thin air. I think that there is a reason why these two are meeting in an out-of-the-way place, thinking that nobody would notice that they were there. Clinton has a history of doing that. Remember meeting with the Attorney General at the time that Hillary Clinton was under investigation, and they both showed up. Just coincidentally, they showed up at the tarmac at Phoenix Airport, and there was a meeting. I think it was that the Attorney General came over to Bill Clinton's plane there in the tarmac, was there for about 20 minutes, and it, is made you, well, what was that all about? Well, I think the Attorney General was there to tell Bill, don't worry, we're not going to come after Hillary for all of the stuff we've been investigating, and letting him know what the decision was going to be before the decision was publicly announced. I think that's what it was all about. And I know that one of the things that happens with big corporations when they're doing business deals is that they will, for example, a merger. Two companies are talking about a merger, but they don't want word to get out. They want it to be a secret. They don't want people in their own company finding out about what's going on. They want to have some very secretive conversations about such a thing to see if it's possible. You know what they do? They agree to fly their corporate jets to a remote location, and they have a meeting at the airport. We have a meeting at the airport. We get back on our planes. Nobody in this little burg that we landed, this little tiny airport we landed at, has any knowledge of what we're doing. They don't know who we are, and that way they can conduct these things quietly. I think Bill Clinton went to the Phoenix airport knowing that the Attorney General was going to be there giving a speech, and that it was all planned to have a conversation. Ostensibly, Clinton said he was there to play golf, but nobody has any recollection of where he played golf. He didn't play golf because it was 106 that day in the shade. It was an unbelievably hot day, but, I think he was there to have a conversation, and I think he was in Mexico to do the same thing. Let's talk about how we're going to engineer this thing, but nobody will know it because we'll be in Mexico. Nobody will see us. Nobody will ever find out, except that they did. That's the story that catches my attention today. Let's see, what else? Haley on Town Hall yesterday says that she doesn't think that Trump should be taken off the ballot.
And the Supreme Court needs to rule quickly before other states start to do this. This is one of those don't open a door if you don't want to see what happens. This is a door we don't need to open. I will defeat President Trump fair and square. I don't need anybody throwing him off the ballot to do it.
We don't need to throw him off the ballot to do it. The fact of the matter is that it's the right position to take because it is wrong to try to remove Trump from the ballot like they're trying to do. The Supreme Court will decide that. Haley's making a bit of a surge, especially in New Hampshire. I got the numbers here. In New Hampshire, according to a new CNN UNH poll, University of New Hampshire, it is Trump, and this is in New Hampshire. Trump 39, Haley 32. Trump leading only by 7%. And why is that important? Okay, so let's say Iowa, Trump's going to win. Although Haley is making a little bit of a movement there. Trump is probably going to win. And then you go immediately to New Hampshire. After Iowa, it would not be surprising for some of the candidates who have just not found traction to bow out. There's even been a rumor that DeSantis is thinking about getting out after Iowa, saying it's just not happening for me, and there's no sense just beating my head against a brick wall. And he's right. But if he got out, there would be, a great number of voters that certainly would be looking around trying to decide where they want to land. Would they then go to Nikki Haley? And if they were to pick up, maybe it's Chris Christie, maybe it's Ramaswamy. But if she's only 7 points behind and this poll is accurate, then she doesn't need much to catch Trump in New Hampshire. Could Nikki Haley pull off a victory in New Hampshire and then go to South Carolina and try to make the case that, this is a competitive race? Big, heavy lift because, most of the places where Trump is on the ballot, he leads by 30, 40, 50 points. But in New Hampshire, he leads, if this poll is correct, by 7. She doesn't need much to catch him in New Hampshire. And then, maybe the narrative of this campaign would change somewhat. I don't think so, but it's possible. So watch not only what happens in New Hampshire next Monday when we're there, but then also pay attention to what happens a short time later in New Hampshire and see if anybody drops out in Iowa that gives Nikki Haley a leg up, because she has sort of decided that New Hampshire is where she's got to make a stand. She's got money. She's spending it like you can't believe because the Koch family is backing her. So she's spending a lot of money in Iowa. She's spending a lot of money in New Hampshire. And if she can catch him there, then does it change the narrative? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. These are all the things that are happening in the world of politics right now. Let's see. Anything else I want to... No, I think that's it. Should I call it? Is it time to call it?
Yeah, we can call it.
All right, it's now 52 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.